Hello, Sisters in Crime. I am delighted to be with you on this Tuesday afternoon at 1 p.m. Eastern US time for our live video. And we do these lives every week, and they're little tips to help you along your writing journey. So today I could not be more delighted than now, and we're going to talk about our topic today, which is restarting when you stall out. So, um, let's see. There we go. We finally have Liz. Hi, Liz.
How are
How are you?
you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, good.
All right. Apologies for the technical difficulties. I am delighted that you are here. And I see that we have a few folks joining us in the chat. So thanks to all of those who are here for this very special edition of our 1 p.m. Instagram lives, 1 p.m. US Eastern time, which we do every week to talk about a little writing tips that can help you along your writing journey. So, Liz, I'm going to introduce you briefly, and then I'll have you say a little bit about yourself and what you write. So,
Absolutely.
Liz is a multi-genre author, therapist, and coach, and she is passionate about crafting unforgettable stories and supporting creatives as they move from stuck to started. So we could not have a more perfect guest today for this little live. Um, Liz, do you want to tell us a little bit more about what you write and what you do?
Absolutely. So, hello, everyone. My name is Liz. As was stated, I am a therapist, an author, and a coach. I write in the mystery and fantasy genre, but I kind of dabble everywhere. I have some short stories that have a little bit of romantic suspense, a little dystopian. And I really just am really passionate about creativity and wellness and what does that like to intersect. And so you'll see a lot of that in my stories, whether it's the Lyra Somers mysteries, where she has dreams about people in need but she's also struggling with her own trauma, or in the fantasy where Tabitha is trying to overcome like anxiety and imposter syndrome. So I really kind of like to bring all of that together to just kind of highlight real people in that they're still amazing.
Yes, and that exploration that you do into the emotional lives of these characters could not be more appropriate when we talk about how we as writers sometimes struggle with stalling out. So, can you
Hmm.
talk a little bit about how that work with your day job and the things you like to think about and explore in your writing can apply to what I think I can safely say every single writer has struggled with at some point in their career?
1000%. And I think, and that is Mr. Preston, my corgi in the background.
Fantastic.
Yeah, like I think personally it really helped the therapy and thinking about mindset really helped because as you know when we're writing we sometimes can struggle with self-doubt, imposter syndrome, being overwhelmed, and that awareness really helped me to not avoid my work too long where there wasn't these huge gaps because I was like, wait a minute, like why am I not showing up? Why am I afraid to write? Why am I no longer finding joy here? And like that questioning, that exploration really helped. So I always try to encourage people to reflect. I think especially for creatives it's important to have that reflection time so you know when are you working best and what gets you off task so you could be more in control rather than saying I don't know what's happening to me because that can also feel really scary and like like when is my creativity going to come back.
So my current series that I'm working on now is about a behavioral therapist, or sorry, not a behavioral scientist, sorry, who thinks about human behavior very similar to animal behavior. And I kind of base this on my own beliefs
Mm-hmm.
about how we motivate ourselves. Like that, we're like dogs aren't the only ones who like a little cookie,
Yes,
sometimes.
yes.
So can you talk about some of those tips and tricks to get over the hump of those emotional stall out points?
Yeah, and this is like my like favorite. I really love behavioral work because like you're absolutely right. Like we're really similar to animals, right? So like doing things that reinforce that, like whether it's writing, whether that's showing up to events, whatever that is, right? Thinking about what helps you want to do that, whether it is that cookie, whether it is that validation, whether it is that accountability, what helps to reinforce that, and paying attention separately to what takes away the joy, what makes you avoid. So, like personally, I found if I put a lot of pressure on myself, I don't want to write. I get really
Mhm.
scared and all of these things. So I have to be really conscious of my mindset. And I have to be conscious of if I'm thinking too much of, is someone going to like this? What are they going to say? Because that's going to make me stall. But when I'm just like, let's have fun today, let's light the candle, let's get the snack, and let's make this fun, I show up. So I have to be really conscious about prioritizing those things. And what that looks like for everyone else is create your list, right? What is that list of motivators, and what are those list of like bucket or creativity drainers? And if you could be mindful about that, you can set yourself up to always tap into your creative process and know when you have too many things going on that are zapping it. And that could be an explanation of like why you maybe have that self-doubt or that avoidance.
Oh, I love that idea of making the list of
Mm-hmm.
the sort of like the things that are reinforcing the behavior that you want, which is like
Mm-hmm.
getting your butt in the chair, getting those words on the
Mm-hmm.
page, and the things that are taking away from that, because then it allows you to see how you can create the real world conditions that enable you to do your writing. Um,
1000%.
but let's talk a little bit about some of those real world conditions, like the things that maybe you've struggled with in
Mm-hmm.
your own life, or that you've seen clients of yours or people that you're
Mm-hmm.
coaching struggle with, because life is really real. And sometimes there are obstacles that make us take those big gaps. So how do we like get back into it? What are some examples?
Yeah, I love that because, like, again, like I really like being realistic, right? So sometimes it's not realistic to say, I'm going to write every day, I'm going to get all these words done, but that's the ideal situation. So, whether I'm working with myself or with other people, do like an assessment of your life, right? Whether it's there's a lot of things going on in the world or the news that are straining you,
Hmm.
whether you have like a lot of life stuff, whether it's, like I think about like this time last year, I said, oh, I'm going to write book two in my series in like this month and all this thing. And my mom was going through knee surgery. She was recovering from knee
Hmm.
surgery. So my mind is on the family bucket. I'm taking care of her. I don't have a lot of that time to then put into creativity. So I can either beat up on myself for not writing every day, or I could be realistic and say, like, you don't have the emotional spoons to do that. What do you have the emotional spoons for? So whether that's writing on the weekend or getting up a little bit early or making those adjustments. So I think really being realistic about how are the environmental stuff around you impacting your creativity rather than getting into that like self-doubt or that narrative that we get into like we're bad, we're not creative, we're not being responsible because that's only going to push you further from your work.
I love that. So just like creating a narrative that
Hmm.
helps you feel successful really
Hmm.
builds on that success. So if that original thing that you were telling yourself was, I've got to get 2,000 words on the
Hmm.
page every day or I'm a failure, well, that's not really going to inspire you, if you're going through one of those periods where, your kids are sick or you've got caregiving responsibilities or the job is going crazy, because you're not going to be successful. So, how do you
Hmm.
reframe those parameters so that you can have small successes that you can then build on? Um,
Absolutely. And like if you know like you can hit those 2000 words, okay, like what are the conditions that help you to do that? And can you replicate that? I think, again, like making it realistic rather than like, oh, every time I'm going to sit down, I'm going to do this. Well,
yeah.
there's some conditions that help you do that. And are you really setting yourself up for that?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Are there things that you've found, because you've written a number of books now, and I think, the motivation changes throughout a writer's career, even within the same short
Mhm.
story or book project, but certainly from project to project. Have you seen that play out in your own writing?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. I think so. I think fun is still at the core of it. Like there is a little bit more of like I want it to like financially make sense. Like I would say over the last year I really like I want to do this full time where I wasn't giving myself that permission to dream like that and to say like oh I
Hmm.
want to do that. And so there's more of a desire to like be good at it, whatever that means, like to push myself to grow. I think that's it. I think there's more of a desire to grow and see like, oh, I've pushed myself and didn't think I'd get this far. What is next? What are the other things that I get to do creatively? And so I think right now it's about being curious. And I think for anyone listening that they're like, oh, I don't know about my career as an author, as this, be curious about like what is next for you. Keep growing because you could grow at any stage rather than it having like a a fixed goal, whether it's monetary, a number of books, a number of this, just continue to be curious and to have fun along the way.
So you touched a little bit about, there's my dog. We have matching barking little dogs today. You touched a little bit on some of the emotional impediments, the
Mm-hmm.
fear, the guilt, the worry, the imposter syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
um, that impede us as we're
Mm-hmm.
trying to restart after we stall out. And I wondered if you could talk about some of those like label things that we do to ourselves that we're like, oh, well, when I do this, then I'm a real writer. When I get published, then that, like that, I think
Yeah.
that's super common for writers to feel like no matter where they are, that it's just not enough.
Oh yeah. And I listen, I'm guilty of that. And like last year I really tried to do a lot of I'm glad I'm not alone, you know?
Now that secretly Sisters in Crime is just a club of that. Like that's all our
Right. And
unifying thing.
1000%. And like last year, I was really doing a lot of mental work of shedding those things. And um, I think environment is really important, right? So being around people that challenge some of those narratives. So like whether it's like you feel like, oh man, like I'm not a good enough writer, and you had people that love your books or love your character or get what you're saying or get what you're doing, or when you feel like, oh, my writing doesn't fit within the rules, so I'm not a real writer, exposing and looking at work that's like, hey, like this is uh, a fantasy story that's only 300 pages and not 600 pages, and it's still a fantasy and people still love it. Hey, this person only writes short stories or novellas, and like, so I think if you're struggling with your mindset and some of the labels you ascribe to yourself, exposure, exposure, exposure. The more you look at people, the more you talk to people in their careers, even thinking about like, I didn't think I could be a therapist and an author. I thought I had to choose. And so, like, really saying, like, oh, I get to live in both those spaces and create a space where both of them can coexist. So, I think the more you talk to people and you see all the wonderful things they're doing, it helps you know that everything is limitless, and you get to chase after the things that you want. So, again, if you're struggling with a label, give yourself opportunity to challenge those through talking and exposure to things.
Oh man, I want you as my therapist because I feel I'll send you a check for this session that we're currently having because a lot of what you've said is really resonating with me.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to touch back on what you were saying before about when your mom had knee surgery and how that kind of
Mm-hmm.
changed your goals because I had an experience. So after my youngest kiddo was born, I had this long period of postpartum depression,
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, and then also like the physical aftermath of giving birth. Had just like zero motivation to write. And for me, it really helped to focus on, it was almost like there were still some embers of creativity burning, even in that brain dead time. And I
Mm-hmm.
had to figure out how to like feed just like little bits of kindling into that to build it. It's not the kind of
Yeah.
thing when you're feeling that way, you can't like throw a log on the fire. That's going to put that, so like we
Yeah.
talked a little bit about like breaking down some of those micro goals and I was curious, like, if you had an example of a way like that you've experienced that or someone has experienced that, like reignition, like finding, for me, it was a short story contest that was, I think the word limit was something like 1,500 words. And I thought, okay, I don't have the brain space or the
Mm-hmm.
capacity to write a novel right now or even like a long short story, but I think I can do this very short story with a specific deadline and a really clearly defined remit. What has been that for you? That little thing that like
Mm-hmm.
reignites the fire, or what have you seen other people do that you think is applicable?
Yeah, really great like analogy and example with like the log and like doing something super short. Like those are great. So kind of like piggybacking off of that. So like things I've done if there's been like a period of no writing and I have to get back in is like word crawls or like word sprints. So like in
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes, can you get to 200 words? In 10 minutes, can you get to this many words? So like by the end of this song, can you get 100 words, right? So like things that make you slowly get into the habit without you realizing you're doing the thing that you were avoiding. So you can do that. Um, Go to a coffee shop with friends. I think about like when I first was writing and I wanted to give up and I was like, really like, I can't do this. And I went to my happy place. I went to a bookstore I never went to, and there was a calf right around the corner. And I brought my laptop I'm like, just in case, I'll bring my laptop. And when I saw the calf, I said, oh, well, I'll go to the bookstore and then I'll sit at the calf. And like that helped me to get out of that where I was like really just done because I already had the endorphins of like going to the bookstore and feeling really good and doing that and then being at the calf and like opening my words and like it felt good. And so thinking about that, whether it's going to the water, I love to do that, especially when I'm editing and I'm looking at all the revisions, like go to the water. So think about what are the things that make you feel emotionally excited and then reintroduce your work slowly that way without the pressure, right? Like don't have to get to the end of the chapter or end of this.
Mhm.
If you do one word, if you reread one sentence, that's a small win of getting back into it.
I love that. And this has been a very inspiring conversation. I hope that others who are watching this have been as jazzed about it as I am. And this is really motivating me this afternoon to hit the keyboard and get some words down on paper. So, Liz, let's finish with what is next for you. Oh, first, let me just say that I'm going to put your top 5 tips for restarting when you stall out in the comments. So if people want to check those out after, they will be there. But what is next for you?
Oh, wow. What is next? I'm actually doing some workshops. So I get to do a workshop for an arts fellowship on mental health and creativity. And I'm just writing. I have some short stories out, but just writing so I can continue the series that are out and just having fun with writing again.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And I hope viewers will tune in every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern US time for these little quick break chats. So, over your lunch break or whatever, sit down, watch the 15 or 20-minute conversation, and get inspired to live your best writing life. So, thanks a lot, Liz. And thanks to everybody who joined us today.
Bye.
Bye.